Welcome back to the channel. This will be my first draft for UCL Fantasy. We have less than 2 weeks until that deadline, and I'll be going live for every single one of them around 2 hours before the official deadline, which is kickoff of the first game of that particular match day. And you can also join my UCL Fantasy League. The code is seinof. It doesn't spell out sign off. I don't even know why they keep changing it every single year. But if you were in my UCL Fantasy Mini League last season, all you have to do is sign in with those same details and you'll automatically be part of my UCL Fantasy Mini League. And if you haven't joined yet, all you have to do is go to my description, click the auto join link, or copy and paste that code into the UEFA Gaming Hub, the app, or the UCL Fantasy website. It's very easy to find. And if you have any other questions about how to play UCL Fantasy, then let me know down in the comment section below. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Our aim will be to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals because we are closing in on 35,000 subscribers. And check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships if you want to support the channel even further and gain early access to my videos amongst many other perks. There's also my Discord server, that UCL Fantasy League, as well as Spotify. But let's jump straight into this, building my first 50-man squad for UCL Fantasy. Before every single match day, I'll be doing deadline streams, team selections, and when applicable, wildcard and limitless squads. And if you want to see a chip strategy video, let me know down in the comment section below. But for the Champions League final last season, I had Sommer and Gianluigi Donnarumma, and of course the latter has gone to Manchester City now, but I'm looking to go for Joan Garcia from Barcelona, who recently signed from their rivals Espanyol, and he only cost 4.5 million, so I think he could offer terrific value. The only issue is that some of the fixtures are quite difficult for Barcelona from a defensive perspective, and I think the main appeal with the Catalans will be their attackers, which I'll get onto very soon. But to have that entry point into that Barcelona defense, only 4.5 million, I think that'll bode well, and Garcia has so much potential. He was linked to so many clubs throughout the summer, and he can make a lot of saves and even get some Player of the Match awards in the process. My highlight defender here, though, is Gabriel, who faces Athletic Bilbao away from home, and I'll be discussing him in detail as well because he has started every single game for Arsenal so far this season, but suffered an injury around March, which saw him miss out those crucial games against Real Madrid, where Arsenal eventually prevailed, but they did fall short against Paris Saint-Germain, and Gabriel was missed in such situations, especially from those set pieces. But I think Gabriel will be a terrific asset. The same goes for Hakimi, but PSG's fixtures in general are quite poor. And in terms of the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, they're amongst the bottom teams over the first 8 match days throughout the entire league phase. But he should still be considered. And the same goes for Kalinoglu and Michael Olise. But from these two options, I do prefer the Frenchman, and that's why I'm looking to go for him in this midfielder position. He only costs 8 million, which does seem underpriced based on what he did in the previous campaign. He had a great debut season for the Bavarians, and I think Olise will do even better this time round. But the highlight forward transfer is Ousmane Dembele to Kylian Mbappe. From one Frenchman to the other, they both have a similar price tag, and of course Dembele was previously classified as a midfielder, but he is now a forward in UCL Fantasy, and Mbappe has suffered a price drop to 10.5 million. He was 11 million euros last season, but I think he is still going to be one of the most lethal forwards in UCL Fantasy and throughout Europe. He did win the Golden Boot, of course, throughout Europe's top 5 leagues, and even over the likes of Gyökeres because of the point scoring system, and a goal in La Liga will be worth more than a goal in Portugal. But I am happy with my original setup. There are going to be some holes in there and areas for improvement for future drafts and my final team selection, but Di Gregorio will be my main goalkeeper, at least to start with, and you want to have your backup options and those on your bench playing later in the match day. This is something I've always talked about in UCL Fantasy because you can make substitutions just like we did in the Club World Cup, which I covered throughout the summer, the Euros, and World Cup Fantasy, which are 2 other fantasy formats I've talked about on this channel as well. But Di Gregorio faces Borussia Dortmund at home, and so far this season, Juventus have kept 2 clean sheets out of 2 league games, and they're top of Serie A with a +3 goal difference. But Di Gregorio only made 2 saves in that time frame, which is identical to the stats he had around this time last season when I was talking about him, but he was quite disappointing in UCL Fantasy last time out with only 25 points. His ownership is only 5% at this moment in time, and in UCL Fantasy in the previous campaign, he kept 3 clean sheets, conceded 8 goals, and made 20 saves, which doesn't sound too terrible to be honest because Juventus were knocked out early, but he picked up 1 yellow card and a red, and that infamous duo of Blažević and Di Gregorio will give many people nightmares, but I'm still tempted to go for that 4.5 million goalkeeper in Di Gregorio. I think Juventus can keep plenty of clean sheets throughout the league phase, and he could rotate quite nicely with Joan Garcia, but ultimately you will have one starting and the one playing later in the match day on the bench, and it maximizes your chances of getting points that way. But apart from Borussia Dortmund, Juventus will face Villarreal away, Real Madrid away, Sporting at home, Bodo Glimt away, Paphos at home, Benfica also at home, and then finally Monaco away in Matchday 8. So some of those opening fixtures are quite tough, and it's definitely debatable about starting the season with Di Gregorio, and it's not set in stone whatsoever, but I still like him as an option in general, and he is definitely worth consideration in this goalkeeper position. Now, in my defense, I am going for a back four right now, and it's all about the dates of when they play, of course. But Gabriel made his first start in 4 months versus Athletic Bilbao during the Emirates Cup back in August, and he performed well in a 3-0 win for the Gunners. He has gone on to start every single Premier League game, which I mentioned earlier, with 2 clean sheets out of 3 matches so far, and Arsenal's defence continues to look solid. They limited Liverpool to an expected goals figure of 0.52 at Anfield, but it took a wonder strike and a terrific free kick from Szoboszlai to break down that Arsenal defence, and I think they'll keep plenty of clean sheets both in the Champions League and in FPL, of course, when I cover that game as well. So Gabriel's price is 5.5 million. His ownership is 13%, so he's not a differential, but nor is he a template pick, and he accrued 54 points in the Champions League last season with 1 goal, which came against Sporting, 4 clean sheets, 6 goals conceded, and 54 ball recoveries, and he also picked up 1 yellow card. So those stats in general are quite decent, but it's worth noting that William Saliba came off injured, and I think he picked up that problem during the warm-up against Liverpool, so that could be a massive blow for Arsenal, and let's see how long he's out for. But he withdrew from the France squad. We're seeing a lot of international injuries and also a few hamstring problems and muscle issues in the Premier League already, and this could be a widespread issue throughout Europe, and that will all be covered throughout my UCL Fantasy videos. On the other side of North London, Pedro Porro hasn't blanked in FPL so far this season, averaging 5 points per game. The Spaniard is on set pieces for Tottenham Hotspur in the absence of James Maddison, who suffered an ACL injury, and he was also booked in their 2-0 win against Manchester City. But Tottenham Hotspur have kept 2 clean sheets out of 3 matches so far, so an identical start to Arsenal, with only 1 goal conceded in that defeat against Bournemouth, where they were thoroughly outplayed at home, but Spurs have still been quite impressive on the Thomas Frank so far. They were 2-0 up in the UEFA Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain, but ultimately lost out on penalties towards the very end of that game, and they are top of the fixture difficulty rating until Matchday 8, so Spurs' long-term fixtures are very appealing. They face Villarreal at home to kick things off, then it's Bodo Glimt away, which is a fixture they had in the Europa League, where they ended up winning that competition. Monaco will also be away from home, then it's Copenhagen, which is going to be a home fixture, PSG away, Slavia Prague and Borussia Dortmund both at home, and then Frankfurt away, which is yet another game they had en route to their Europa League win. So Pedro Porro could be a great asset at only 5 million, and his ownership is quite low at 4%, so it's another differential for you. Whilst you won't get extra points for scouting bonus like we did in the Club World Cup, it's still quite handy to have these low-owned players who can help you rise up those mini leagues and also the rankings. But I think Porro should be worth consideration, and 1 or 2 Tottenham players is definitely viable considering their fixtures. Now, Dean Howson provided an assist in Real Madrid's 2-1 win over Mallorca, their last game before the international break, and Los Blancos are top of La Liga with 2 clean sheets out of 3 matches so far. He was sent off in the Club World Cup versus Borussia Dortmund and was sorely missed in the semi-finals against Paris Saint-Germain, but after a breakout season with Bournemouth, Dean Howson will be nailed on in that Real Madrid defence, only 4.5 million, and its ownership is 14%. But after Marseille at home, which looks quite appealing for Real Madrid, they face Kara Almaty away, and that's going to be a large travel distance, but it should still be a very winnable fixture. Then it's Juventus at home, Liverpool and Olympiacos away, Manchester City and Monaco at home, and then Benfica away. So I don't think Real Madrid's fixtures are particularly great, but the first 2 match days look quite appealing on paper, and there could be 1 or 2 clean sheets in the process, so Los Blancos can qualify directly in the top 8 spots instead of qualifying through the knockout playoff rounds, as we saw last season against Manchester City. But the last defender in my starting 11 is Anton, who only costs 4 million, and is a nice entry point into that Borussia Dortmund defence. He scored in the opening league game versus St. Pauli, which ended in a 3-3 draw. They went on to keep a clean sheet in a comprehensive 3-0 win over Union Berlin, and Dortmund also delivered a clean sheet in the first round of the DFB Pokal. So with 2% ownership and a 4 million price tag, I think Anton could offer exceptional value. He scored 25 points in UCL Fantasy last season. He earned a penalty, kept a clean sheet, considered 14 goals and made 35 ball recoveries and only picked up 1 yellow card in the process. So I think with those fixtures, which aren't particularly great to be fair at the beginning, you could maybe ignore that a little bit considering his price tag and the low ownership. After Juventus away, it will be Athletic Bilbao at home, Copenhagen and Manchester City away, Villarreal and Bodo Glimt at home, Spurs away, and then Inter Milan at home. So you could definitely find better fixtures elsewhere, and that includes some of my midfielders, but of course that won't be the case for Elise because Bayern Munich have some tricky challenges over the first 4 match days, but the Frenchman has scored in every Bundesliga game so far, producing 4 returns across 3 matches. He was underwhelming in the Franz Beckenbauer Super Cup final against Stuttgart, but Bayern Munich prevailed with a 2-1 win nonetheless, and Elise's ownership is 25%. I think he is underpriced at 8 million, which I talked about before. He produced 62 points in UCL Fantasy last season, and he got 5 goals, 1 assist, a Player of the Match award, and only 4 clean sheets and 24 ball recoveries. But if you're signing an Elise or a Bayern Munich attacker, you're not really fancying them for those ball recoveries and the clean sheet points as well. He picked up 1 yellow card, and after Chelsea at home, it will be Paphos away, Club Brugge at home, PSG and Arsenal away. Then things turn for the better, and you have a nice fixture swing in the middle of the league phase with Sporting at home, Union Saint-Gilloise also at home, and then finally PSV away. So I do like Elise in the grand scheme of things, but the opening fixtures, besides Paphos, doesn't look particularly great for Bayern Munich. Now, Kudus is also here for those fixtures, but don't expect too many goals from him. He provided 2 assists on his Premier League debut for Spurs, which culminated in a 3-0 win over Burnley, but the Ghanaian only scored 4 league goals for West Ham last season, and he has 1 goal out of his last 10 matches. He performed well versus PSG in the UEFA Super Cup final, as well as Manchester City in the Premier League, and he does cost 7 million, which might be a little bit too steep. You might find better value elsewhere in this position, but his ownership is only 4% at the time of this recording, and I talked about Spurs' fixtures earlier in this video. They are top of the FDR for the first 8 match days, but João Neves has some very tricky games on paper, but he secured a hat-trick versus Toulouse in a 6-3 win for Paris Saint-Germain, and they won the other 2 league games by a 1-0 margin, and of course they sit top of Ligue 1 alongside Olympique Lyon. João Neves only cost 6 million and his ownership is 19%, and he scored 73 points in UCL Fantasy last season, courtesy of 1 goal, 1 assist, a Player of the Match award, 7 clean sheets, and 87 ball recoveries. So if you're signing a João Neves type of player, maybe Moises Caicedo at the same price would also be very appealing. You're signing them for the clean sheets and the ball recoveries as well. He picked up 2 yellow cards, which isn't the greatest, but he also played a lot of games there for Paris Saint-Germain en route to their Champions League victory, and PSG's fixtures are very tough. After Atalanta at home in Matchday 1, it's Barcelona and Bayer Leverkusen away, Bayern Munich and Tottenham at home, Athletic Bilbao and Sporting away, and then Newcastle at home. But some of these fixtures might have been much more challenging last season, like Bayer Leverkusen, but they have fallen off a cliff. They sacked Erik ten Hag and lost so many key players like Piero Hincapié, Granit Xhaka, Florian Wirtz, and Jeremy Frimpong. So I think Bayer Leverkusen are there for the taking as things stand. But the final midfielder in my starting 11 is Arda Güler, who was never a consideration for me in UCL Fantasy last season, but under Xabi Alonso, he has got a lot more game time. He also scored in his last match, helping Real Madrid go top of La Liga, and he was also involved, of course, in the goals like Dean Howsam. The Turkish international also registered an assist versus Real Oviedo in a 3-0 win, and Xabi Alonso has starred Güler in every single match since joining Madrid in the summer. Güler was impressive in the Club World Cup and will get plenty of opportunities this season, unlike his chances under Carlo Ancelotti in the previous campaign. His ownership is 14% and the price tag is very appealing at 6%, but he only produced 7 points last season and he only played 142 minutes with 5 ball recoveries and nothing else of note. But Arda Güler, I think, will offer extreme value in this position. I think he's going to be a very enticing option. The fixtures aren't particularly great, but you could even wildcard fairly early on and use the likes of Arda Güler and triple Real Madrid to your advantage, because that's what I'm going for at this moment in time. One of my key forwards is Kylian Mbappe. He already has 3 goals this season, despite blanking against Mallorca in the previous game. He has 11 goal contributions over the last 10 games for both club and country, and across 87 Champions League games, the Frenchman has amassed 55 goals and 27 assists. He has also delivered 47 goals in 62 matches for Real Madrid in his career. So I think that's only going to get better and better, and he's going to be the one getting the bulk of the chances. Vinicius Jr. has been very impressive so far this season. You might want to go for him instead, but I think Kylian Mbappe will be the best goal scorer that Real Madrid have, and I don't see many strikers throughout Europe outscoring the Frenchman as we saw last season. It's worth highlighting again that Mbappe won the European Golden Boot, so for the goals scored in the top 5 leagues, no one outperformed him in that metric. His price tag has taken a dip to 10.5 million, but the ownership remains very high at 51%. He scored 64 points for Real Madrid in the previous campaign, courtesy of 7 goals, one of which was outside the box, which gives you an additional point. He got 2 assists, earned a penalty, so irrespective of the penalty being missed, you still get those points for the penalty being earned. He missed a penalty against Liverpool that was saved by Kelleher at the time, and he also earned 1 Player of the Match award, but I think he'll get even more this time round. And with all these forwards, ignore the ball recoveries, because Mbappe, for example, has made 9 and Guirassy has made 7. You're not going to get points from ball recoveries with these strikers. If you do, then count your lucky stars and stuff like that, because you're not going to get them very often. Mbappe also picked up 1 yellow card, and I back him as one of the top captaincy options against Marseille and Kairat Almaty, but afterwards it gets much trickier from Matchday's 3-2-6 arguably, even though Man City is yet another fixture that could be there for those attackers. But Guirassy has been outstanding for Borussia Dortmund, and he has scored in his last 5 competitive games dating back to the Club World Cup. The 29-year-old has produced 9 goals over the past 10 matches. He notched a brace in a 3-0 win over Union Berlin, and is Borussia Dortmund's main penalty taker, which is yet another string to his bow. With an XG figure of 3.27 in the Bundesliga, he has scored thrice so far this season, and I think he is severely underpriced at 8 million. He could easily warrant a 9 to 10 million price tag, or perhaps even more, based on what he did last season with 103 UCL Fantasy points, 13 goals. He shared the Champions League Golden Boot, I believe, with 2 from outside the box, 4 assists, 3 penalties earned. He also missed a penalty against Sporting, which I remember so fondly, and he won 3 Player of the Match awards. He picked up 2 yellow cards, and Dortmund's fixtures were talked about earlier, but I still back Guirassy to score in any given game, and it now brings us on to my bench, where I've got the likes of Joan Garcia, who I discussed earlier. He has only delivered 1 clean sheet out of 3 matches so far, but he has been mightily impressive for Barcelona. The Spaniard has made 9 saves, and his XG prevented figure, which is a very important stat for a goalkeeper, it's already at 1.68, and he was Barcelona's best player in their last match against Rayo Vallecano in a 1-1 draw. His price tag is very low for a Barcelona goalkeeper, and his ownership remains 12%, but Barcelona's fixtures are quite difficult, facing Newcastle away, PSG and Olympiacos at home, Club Brugge and Chelsea away, Frankfurt at home, Slavia Prague away, and Copenhagen at home. So it's quite a mixed bag at the beginning. Then it definitely turns for the better, but I still think Barcelona can win most of those games and easily finish in the top 8 of the league phase. But Denzel Dumfries is still in here, despite costing 6 million and Inter Milan being quite shaky under their new manager. And it was a major shock, of course, in matchday 17 of last season for that Champions League final for PSG to absolutely destroy them by a 5-0 scoreline. But Dumfries scored in a 2-1 defeat against Udinese last time out, and Inter Milan won their other Serie A game by a 5-0 scoreline against Torino at home. They have the best fixtures over the first 4 match days, and that includes the likes of Ajax away, Slavia Prague at home, Union Saint-Gilloise away, and Kairat Almaty at home. Then it becomes tricky, facing Atletico Madrid away, Liverpool and Arsenal at home, and Dortmund away. But I think for the first 4 match days, if you're wildcarding around matchday 5 or 6, the likes of Dumfries will be perfect for your UCL Fantasy setup, and he was outstanding in the knockout stages of the Champions League last season. That's why his ownership is quite high at 21%. He scored 80 points, which was one of the highest of any defender. Only the likes of Bacho, Marquinhos and Hakimi would have been significantly higher. Nuno Mendes might have been another one with even more UCL Fantasy points, but Dumfries got 2 goals, 3 assists, earned a penalty, and kept 7 clean sheets with 12 goals conceded and also 36 ball recoveries. So if you're investing in Dumfries, it's for that attacking potential, and if you're banking on some clean sheets from Inter Milan. He picked up 2 yellow cards, but I still think Dumfries will be one of the very best defenders for the first 4 match days. And in my opinion, 2 of the best players have been saved for last in Yamal and Haaland. And some people might still be thinking, why do you have these players on your bench? It's the way UCL Fantasy works. It's not like FPL where you rely on automatic substitutions and you always put your best starting 11. You want to have those playing later in the match day. So in this case, both of them play on the 18th of September on that Thursday. I'll have them on my bench and bring them on for my lowest scoring players. And the same goes for the captaincy, where you can switch it between every single day within a match day. So for match day 1, we have 3 opportunities to get the captaincy spot on. And for match days 2 to 8, you'll have 2 days within a match day on the Tuesday and Wednesday. So hopefully that's clear and it's a little bit different to other fantasy games you may have played in the past. But Yamal has returned in every game so far this season with 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 matches. He also took Barcelona's penalty against Rayo Vallecano in that 1-1 draw just before the international break last Sunday. Including friendlies, he has delivered a goal contribution in 6 successive matches, and he also scored a brace versus France in the Nations League semi-final a couple of months ago. His price tag is 10 million and his ownership is 54%. Now, one of my top tips from last season throughout the summer was to go for Rafinha over Yamal, and he was a massive differential at the time with 5% ownership. And whilst that's still viable, I'm probably in the Yamal camp at this moment in time, especially if he has penalties as well and he takes them consistently for Barcelona. And Lewandowski isn't starting regularly for the Catalans nowadays, which only boosts Yamal's appeal in terms of the goal scoring threat and also with those penalty duties. So I'm really bullish on Lamine Yamal. He scored 74 points last season with 5 Champions League goals, 2 of which were from outside the box, 3 assists, 2 Player of the Match awards, and I only see that increasing this season. 2 clean sheets, 19 ball recoveries, but with Yamal, you're signing him for the attacking potential. But a nice positive from last season is that he wasn't booked, not even once, in the Champions League. Now, the fixtures I talked about before with Joan Garcia, that's why tripling up on Barcelona isn't really a bad idea, but you might want to wait a little bit until the fixtures turn for the better. And the final player is Erling Haaland. Despite Man City losing twice this season already, Haaland already has 3 Premier League goals and he scored in 2 of those games. He got maximum bonus points for Manchester City in their 2-1 loss against Brighton. The Norwegian has 9 goals and 1 assist over the last 10 games for club and country, with only 2 blanks during that spell. And his Champions League record is the best of any player that is currently playing football, or at least in Europe. 49 goals in 48 Champions League games, as well as 5 assists. And his record for Man City is equally phenomenal, with 148 goal contributions in 149 matches. So basically, Erling Haaland is going to guarantee you points, but his ownership is very low for a player of this stature at only 12%. He scored 50 points last season. The price tag is 10.5 million overall, and he scored 8 Champions League goals, all of which were from inside the box. So he didn't get additional points for scoring a goal from outside the penalty area, and he got 0 assists, 1 penalty earned. He also missed a penalty against Sporting, where Victor Gyökeres scored a hat-trick on that day, and he didn't win a single Player of the Match award, but I think that will change this season. The ball recoveries is irrelevant. He got 5 and also 0 yellow cards, which is a massive bonus for any player because that means you won't get any point deductions, of course, for those bookings. And the fixtures are fairly decent for Man City. It's Napoli at home, Monaco and Villarreal away, Borussia Dortmund and Bayer Leverkusen at home, Real Madrid and Bodo Glimt away, and then Galatasaray at home. So I think Man City have some promising fixtures, but one of the most difficult ones on paper is in matchday 1 against Napoli. But there's one key component left of this 15-man squad, and that's the captaincy. My first option will be Kylian Mbappe, who plays on the Tuesday, and that will be the day of the deadline, of course. So keep your eyes peeled for that, the 16th of September. And that's the way things work. You pick one captain who plays on the first day within a game week or match day, and Mbappe will be my favourite option from that Tuesday set of games. Then, if needed, if I'm not happy with Mbappe's points, maybe he ends up blanking against Marseille, Elise will be my backup on the 17th on the Wednesday. But because matchday 1 is a little bit different, we'll have 3 shots at the captaincy. And let's say Elise is also quite disappointing when it comes to the armband, and I want even more points from my captain, then one of Erling Haaland or Lamine Yamal will take the final captaincy. And I think Erling Haaland is the best of the lot from my bench, facing Napoli at home on the 18th of September on that Thursday. But just remember, from match days 2 to 8, we won't have 3 shots at the captaincy, but only 2. But that should still be enough to have plenty of shots at getting things right. And of course, in previous campaigns, we had sometimes 4 chances of getting the captaincy spot on. And that's something we typically see in the knockout stages, of course, in the earlier rounds at least. But I've got a nice setup here. There are a few potential issues like a triple up in Real Madrid. And after the first 2 match days, that could be a slight concern. I've also got Borussia Dortmund assets in Anton and Guirassy, but also Di Gregorio. So there is a direct clash in match day 1. But apart from that, I am quite happy on the whole. Maybe certain individual picks could be slightly better like Kudus, but it's also targeting those promising fixtures for Tottenham Hotspur. And there's a lot more to discuss in upcoming UCL Fantasy videos. Let me know if you want to see different types of content, like a chip strategy guide for the Champions League. That might come after match day 1, to be fair, going into match day 2, because remember, you can't play the wildcard or limitless for the opening match day, as everyone has unlimited transfers. And if you want to see a predicted lineups podcast, which would certainly be ambitious, covering all 36 teams, then also let me know down in the comment section. Join the Discord server. Let's continue the conversation across all my social media platforms. And I have done that type of video, the predicted lineups for FPL, the Club World Cup, and the Euros over the years. And if you want to see one for the Champions League, then I'll try my very best to make that happen. But stay tuned for even more drafts, my team selection, and also best wildcard and limitless squads every single week. You probably thought the video was over, but as a wise man once said, don't go anywhere, because these are the clean sheet odds for match day 1. And if there are any updates, I will cover them in the deadline stream in a couple of weeks' time. But in top spot, there is Sporting against Kairat Almaty away from home with a 60% probability of keeping a clean sheet. In second, we have another Portuguese team in Benfica with a 57% chance of keeping one against Qarabag. Then it's PSG, Olympiacos, Real Madrid and Man City in the top 6. And the likes of Arsenal are also firmly placed within the top 10. And in last, the 36th least likely team to keep a clean sheet is Kairat Almaty facing Sporting at home with a 6% probability as well. And if you want to see the top 10 captains and stuff like that in regular videos, then let me know as well down the comment section below. And this is going to be an extended list, of course, of those teams that are likely to keep a clean sheet. Tottenham Hotspur are 7th, Arsenal 8th, Bayern Munich and Inter Milan are in the top 10. Liverpool and PSV narrowly miss out on that elite group. But let me actually show you my top 10 captaincy options as things stand. And this is definitely subject to change. I've got Kylian Mbappe in top spot, facing Marseille at home. Erling Haaland is second, with another home fixture facing Napoli. Ousmane Dembele is third. Yamal is fourth, despite facing Newcastle away. Vinicius Jr. is fifth, after a great start to the season. Pavlidis is sixth, but he has been absolutely terrible in the last couple of games for Benfica, so that could definitely change a little bit, and he might even make his way out of that top 10. Mohamed Salah is seventh, facing Atletico Madrid at home, and Harry Kane is eighth, facing an informed Chelsea side at this moment in time. Victor Gyökeres is ninth. He scored his first goal for Arsenal against Athletic Bilbao in a 3-0 win back in August. And Rafinha is 10th, also facing Newcastle away. So maybe you've got different opinions on this. Maybe you agree with some of these classifications, but the rankings are certainly subject to change. And there are even more options where that came from. And even the likes of Guirassy, with a difficult fixture on paper, could come good and be one of the very best forwards in UCL Fantasy for match day 1. But some of my picks, of course, in my first draft are also having match days 2, 3 and 4 in mind, and some of them even have great long-term fixtures like Tottenham Hotspur, of course, which I've covered before. But the fixtures will be analysed in more detail, even predicted points, goal scorer odds, clean sheets, you name it. They'll all be mixed up in my analysis of the Champions League, so stay tuned for even more content in UCL Fantasy. We have reached the end of the first video and podcast for the Champions League this season, and all your support in the previous campaign was greatly appreciated. We reached incredible numbers, and this time round, we want to get to even bigger ones for subscriptions, likes, and shares. And all your support throughout the summer was also greatly appreciated in terms of the Club World Cup, and your reception for that was incredible. And for the early parts of this season with Fantasy Premier League 2, and let's keep on growing this channel. We are closing in on 35,000 subscribers. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Let's get it to the 200 on YouTube, and subscribe. Make sure to also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content for both UCL Fantasy and FPL, and keep your eyes peeled for even more content throughout the international break. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the Championships For links to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the first deadline stream of UCL Fantasy this season. The same goes for FPL deadline and reaction streams over that weekend, and keep your eyes peeled for even more UCL Fantasy content.